Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to today's WineVine virtual tasting, online tasting. Today is Cabernet Franc. My name is Julie Purpura Hosbach, and I am the Education and Member Services Manager at the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. I'm a certified sommelier through the Court of Master Sommeliers, a certified specialist of wine through the Society of Wine Educators, and WSET III certified through Wine Spirit Education Trust, which basically means I'm a huge wine nerd and love discussing wines. Thank you for joining me today. Before we officially kick off, I want to thank you for your involvement in the New York Wine and Grape Foundation this year. We're looking forward to new and exciting initiatives and benefits for our consumer members. If you haven't checked it out yet, we have a bold new brand. You can visit newyorkwines.org, our website, to find out more details, or feel free to email me or ask any questions at the end. We plan on continuing to build our educational programming both online and in person, so stay tuned for more webinars and events. If you have any requests for a specific topic, please email me or at Julie Hosbach at nywgf.org, or you can call 315-924-3703. Put my email into the chat bar so you have my contact information if you need it. We'll also be at the State Fair this week on Wednesday, August 28th and Saturday, August 31st at 2 and 4 p.m. in the Horticultural Building. We'll be offering wine classes on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're going to be there, please check us out or make it a point to come visit us and taste and appreciate New York State wines. And now back to our business at hand. I encourage you to ask questions via the Q&A bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I attached the tasting sheet and the Zoom link for you. You're welcome to take notes or not. I will send this recording out to you following the, in about 24 hours. Please feel free to ask questions and comment as much as possible. It's much more exciting and engaging to have your comments. Again, you can type them in the Q&A bar or the chat bar at the bottom of your screen. And now let's get on to talking about Cabernet Franc. I'm really excited to be talking about Cabernet Franc. It's one of the probably growing signature grapes of New York State. It's being produced in a lot of different regions. The three we have highlighted today are the Finger Lakes, Hudson Valley, and Long Island. And excitingly, we just had our New York Wine Classic August 5th through 7th, and Cabernet Franc won the Governor's Cup from 6 Mile Creek, the wine we're tasting from the Finger Lakes. So it's super exciting. There was just a podcast, which I put in the notes at the end, a link to, on Cabernet Franc, Wine Enthusiast. Lots of great excitement about Cabernet Franc going on. So I'm going to share a brief little slideshow, and then we'll get right into tasting. Let's see, hopefully you can all see this. So again, if you haven't seen our new brand name, it's Boldly New York. So Cabernet Franc, let's briefly talk about its growing characteristics in the vineyard. It's typically considered a cool to maritime climate grape, so not quite as hot climate as Cabernet Sauvignon, which, as a fun fact, is its child. So Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc are the parents to Cabernet Sauvignon. That's where it gets its name from. It is pretty disease resistant, which again lends itself well to New York State, and it likes most soil types, as we have a diversity of them in the various regions of New York State. So its home, its Old World home, Old World referring to Europe, New World referring to most prominent wine regions located outside of Europe. Its Old World home would definitely be 2 spots in France, Bordeaux and Loire Valley. So in Bordeaux, it's one of the traditional blending grapes of a Bordeaux variety, and very commonly used on the right side of the bank in Bordeaux, typically blended with Merlot and Cab Sauv, and then in smaller quantities, Petit Verdot, perhaps Malbec, and a little bit on the left bank, but mostly a more dominating grape in the right bank. In the Loire Valley, it is more commonly seen as a lone varietal. So Chinon and Berguil are two regions, subregions in the Loire Valley that you'll see a lot of Cabernet Franc. It's kind of the dominant red grape in those parts of the Loire Valley. And it's also made into a rosé there. And it generally is a little bit cooler in the Loire Valley. Again, similarly to New York State, so we tend to see a little bit higher acidity levels there. And then Cab Franc really, as I said, is becoming quite one of the signature grapes, I would say, of New York State. And it's grown in the Finger Lakes, the Hudson Valley. There's actually a Hudson Valley Cabernet Franc coalition that's dedicated to growing and making high quality Cabernet Francs. If you haven't checked out that, check out their website. Long Island has the warmest climate, as we've talked about in previous sessions, has more of a maritime, where the rest of our state pretty much is a cool continental climate. So we see a little bit riper style Cabernet Francs coming out of there. And then the Niagara region on the US side is also producing some Cab Franc there. Typically, we see a lot of Cabernet Franc in New York State produced as a single varietal, as we're tasting today, which means by federal law in the US that it's 75% or more of that grape. But it is certainly used in, we call them meritage blends, right? So that's typically the name in the US given to Bordeaux-like blends. So again, Cab Franc blended with Cab Sauv and Merlot. And it is definitely in New York State being produced as a rosé, one of the dominating, alongside probably Pinot Noir, Lemberger, and some hybrids. I would say Cabernet Franc is one of the most popular red or black and blue grapes being made into a rosé in the state. So typically Cab Franc in the glass, when we're talking about wine appreciation, again, fun fact, it is the father to Cabernet Sauvignon, but not as well known nor widely grown and produced. It tends to have a lot of red fruit in the nose, various red berries. It's a very herbaceous aromatics generally between various herbs, and sometimes it has that mithropyrazine characteristic, so sometimes it can have like a bell pepper-like characteristic to it. Then often you get some cedar or pencil shaving wood type aspect to it, depending again on if it's oaked or not oaked. Typically Cabernet Franc is oaked, but there are several examples in New York State that are unoaked. Fox Run and Lemuel Landing come to mind right off the bat, but I know there's more too. So that'll affect its aromatics a little bit. Typically, Cabernet Franc is medium acidity, medium plus acidity, usually around medium tannin level, not as high as Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon generally, and usually not quite the body too. It's more of a medium body, whereas Cabernet Franc is usually more full body. But again, it depends on the climate and the production method and the ripeness of the grapes, depending on that year's weather. So Cab Franc typically, because it has a little bit of higher acidity, it is usually really a good pair for a lot of different food dishes. Chicken, veal, lamb, pork, especially ones that have a lot of herbs in them, come to mind as great pairings to start with trying, but again, it's a pretty food-friendly wine. All right, enough chit-chat. Let's get into tasting and appreciating. So our first wine today is the 6 Mile Creek's 2016 Cabernet Franc. 2016 was a really hot, warm climate. It was a really warm growing season that year. So we had really ripe grapes in the Finger Lakes, and a lot of intensity and concentration. It's a really exciting red vintage for the Finger Lakes. So 6 Mile Creek is New York's combined oldest winery and distillery. It is located in a lovely 19th century restored Dutch colonial barn. And 6 Mile prides themselves on value and service. This is an estate-grown grape. As I said, it's located in Ithaca, so if you're looking at this lovely display of the Finger Lakes, it's the bottom of the curved longest one, or if you're going from the right in, it's the 4th lake in from the right. All right, so let's start with, if you're looking at your tasting sheet that I handed out, we have the see, smell, sip, and savor categories. In terms of color, again, for wine appreciation's sake, tip your glass at a 45-degree angle, please, and put it up against a white backdrop so I have my sheet handy to compare it against. And what color do you see? How would you describe the color of this wine? This is our first red tasting of the series. We started with rosés and then sparkling. So when we're talking about red wines, typically there's ruby, dead on red, and then there's red with a little bit of purple or red with a little bit of brown, which we call garnet. Those are the various levels of red colors. So, and we know that red wines get darker usually as they, or sorry, red wines get lighter and more brickish color as they age. Not that any of these have significant age today. So this 2016 looks pretty dead on ruby to me. Anything else you see in it? It's, when we talk about clear versus cloudy, if you hold your fingers up to behind it, it is actually clear. You can see through it. Of course, there's more color intensity than a white or a pink, but in terms of clarity and not having cloudy particles, this is a clear wine. Okay, so let's move on to smelling. Again, remember 85 to 90% of what we taste comes from our sense of smell. It's much stronger, so take some good strong deep inhales here. And tell me what you smell. I definitely am getting black cherry, some baking spices, like allspice. Maybe a hint of that cocoa smell. Maybe a delicate sense of herbs. With red wines, when we talk about earth, we're usually talking about like a soil smell more than a wet rock smell. Maybe you're getting some leather. Very nice aromatic. So again, this is 6 Mile Creek's 2016 Cabernet Franc. It is the Governor's Cup winner of New York Wine and Grape Foundation's 34th New York Wine Classic that we held in Watkins Glen this past earlier this month, August 6th and 7th. All right, if nothing else in the nose, go ahead and give it a taste. Remember to swirl the wine around your entire mouth. Pay attention to the structural elements. So we're talking acidity is like that mouth-watering, biting into a lemon characteristic. Your jaw tenses. So for acidity, what do you think on this one? It's like your propensity to drool if you tuck your chin in, mouth watering, mouth pucking. I would say that this was medium acidity. Does it have any sweetness to it? If it's less than 1%, it's considered dry, which is the absence of sugar, and I would say that this is pretty dry. Tannins. Tannins are a mouth drying component, like texture. It's almost like a coating of chalk coating your teeth and tongues. It makes you want a glass of water. So we haven't really talked a ton about tannins because this is our first red wine session, but in the scheme of red wines, this is probably a medium tannin level. If you want to get into, you can even talk about how the tannins felt. Were they smooth or lush or velvet-like? You can get into that tactile feel too. But in terms of low, medium, or high, I would give them about a medium level. Body, what would you say the body was on this wine? In the world of red wines, I would probably give this medium body. Just making sure I'm not missing any comments. And alcohol, remember, is like that sense of warming. So if you don't feel any warming, or maybe a little in your nose, it's typically under 10%. If you feel a little warming in your throat, it's probably 10 to 12, 12.5. And then if you feel it in your chest, it's above that. So does anybody want to guess what the alcohol is in this wine? Okay, say around 13.5%. And here is the bottle. Hopefully you have it sitting in front of you as well, but just in case. Any other thoughts, flavor characteristics, comments you want to add about this wine? Make notes on how you liked it, what you liked best about it. All right. And let's go back to our next wine is going to be from Vineyard. They're located in the Hudson Valley. This is their 2017 Cabernet Franc. They are a part of that Hudson Valley Cab Franc coalition I was telling you about. Flanked by Storm King Mountain to the west and Mount Beacon to the east, the Hudson River flows through one of the oldest fjords in North America. Acting as a gateway to the Hudson Highlands, this geological wonder helps create the unique microclimate that allows Vineyard to grow high-quality wines in the valley. It's founded in 2013 by Matthew Speccarelli and Casey Erdman. They're also the owners of Benmarl, if you've ever heard of that winery. Check them both out for sure. Vineyard Vineyard strives to craft wines that reflect where they're grown. So this is also estate grown. They're located in Marlborough, New York. Let's take a look at this wine. So a little bit younger, see a little bit darker. I'd still say pretty ruby. And even though it's dark in color, if you hold your finger up against the light in the white backdrop, you can still see through it. So it is clear, not cloudy. All right, let's swirl and smell. What do you get in this nose? Whereas the first one had a lot of baking spice and fruit, this one I think is definitely more herbaceous. I get a little bit of cranberry, but I'm definitely getting a lot of oregano. Still get a little bit of that leather, maybe even a hint of tobacco. A little bit of strawberry. Anything else that you're getting? All right, go ahead and take a taste. What do you think of the acidity, that mouth-watering, jaw-tensing? I would say medium again, maybe even a little medium minus acidity in terms of sweetness or the absence of. I'm going to call this also dry. Tannins, that textural feeling, mouth coating, I would say are medium again. And I would also say that this was pretty medium body. What do you think about the alcohol content? Where are you feeling a warming sensation? Definitely feeling it in my chest again. I definitely would guess around 13%. This is the bottle, in case you don't have it sitting in front of you. And it is 13.2% alcohol. Any last comments on the Fjord Vineyard Cabernet Franc? All right, let's move on to our final wine today. Is the Macari Vineyards in Long Island. They're Reserve 2015 Cabernet Franc. Oh, sorry, PowerPoint. So Joseph, the founder of the Macari family and family vineyards, it was really interested and studied a lot the biodiversity of the farm there, the family farm, and has done a lot of research with biodynamic and sustainable wine growing. So they have an extraordinary grape growing environment that yields some awesome fruit on the East Coast. They're located on the North Fork of Long Island in Mattatuck. This recently won a judge's selection and a gold at the Texpom competition earlier this spring. Let's take a look at this wine. So 2015, this one does have a couple of years of age. So you might see that ruby going a little bit to garnet. Still pretty ruby though, in my eyes. And if you hold your fingers up behind it, it is clear, not cloudy. Give it a swirl and see what we smell. I'm getting some strawberry, cherry, again, maybe a hint of baking spices, definitely that herbaceous character again, maybe a hint of dried basil or oregano, a hint of floral in this one too, maybe like violets, though I am definitely not a floral expert. All three of these have had a really beautiful nose. I think we've seen some characteristics through each of the three, but also some differences too, which is reflective of they're all the same grape, but grown in different soils and in different climates or slightly different weather patterns that year for sure. Yeah, definitely violets. Agreed with that comment. All right, let's take a sip of this wine. All right, what do we think of that acidity, that mouth-watering, biting into a lemon, jaw tensing? For this one, I would definitely probably say medium minus acidity. In terms of sugar, I would say there is the absence of, which again means it's dry, or categorized as dry, which can have, for all three wines, up to 1% residual sugar, but I think all of these are less than that. And I would say medium to medium plus tannins on this. Very smooth, soft velvet-like, right? And probably medium plus body. I think this one has a little more weight to it, a little bit more of a warming sensation. Let's see. I would guess it's at least 13.5 alcohol, maybe even a little bit more. And looking at the back, it does say it's 14%. Here is the front of the label, in case again you don't have it in front of you. So yeah, this one is a little bit higher, not a surprise since it's a warmer, generally typically warmer climate, and 2015 was a nice vintage year for reds in Long Island. So 3 beautiful examples of Cabernet Franc here. Any other comments or thoughts on this? Yeah, lots of dried fruit, I agree. Dried cranberries, dried raspberries, beautiful, subtle, delicate fruit, and almost like a hint of potpourri for me too, as I said, on that violet border. Great with lamb, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Or charcuterie board with the right cheeses for sure. Thinking more hard cheeses for this wine. So as I mentioned, that there was just recently in Wine Enthusiast a wine podcast done on Cabernet Franc with Alexander Peartree and Paul Brady, the brand ambassador of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. So if you're interested in checking that out, I included the link in the PowerPoint notes, or you can email me and I can send it to you. Any other last minute thoughts or comments on Cabernet Franc? What are your thoughts and reflections? Sorry, hang on, the PowerPoint's not moving along. So the question is, how different is Cabernet Franc and Loire? Again, they're typically, Loire is a pretty cool climate. They typically have a little bit higher acidity. They often also have Brettanomyces, or Brett for short, which is a yeast strain that tends to give kind of a barnyardy aroma to it, sometimes Band-Aidy or horse saddle. And we see that a lot in more old world styles in general, but it's also pretty characteristic of Cab Francs and Loire. I would say pretty similar in body. Aromatics probably less fruit forward, more herbaceous and earthy. Cab Franc is grown in other parts of the world, but those are the 3 big regions. I think it is growing in popularity. It's definitely a refreshing style, something unique and different to have as another option in your red arsenal. I think we'll continue to see more of it produced. Let's see. Let me just share this last slide with you and then finish with any questions or comments. I hope you enjoyed our Cabernet Francs today. I'm definitely very excited about Cabernet Francs across New York State. And there are, as I said, many more examples being produced. Many producers are producing Cab Franc in several regions around the state. I tried to highlight 3 awesome ones that I am a fan of, but there certainly are a lot more I could have chosen from. Here's that link to the podcast. Next month we'll be tasting Riesling. So Wagner 2017 Dry Riesling won our best white wine at the New York Wine Classic earlier this month that I was referencing. And we'll get some other great examples from around the state for that grape. Again, and arguably one of the leading grape varietals of New York State, and grown in, I think, almost all the regions except for northern New York, which pretty much can only grow their cold hardy hybrids with the growing breeze and the coldness that they get throughout the winter, because they have some really long, deep, cold freezes. Any other questions or thoughts on Cabernet Franc? Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions or comments you think of after, don't hesitate to send them my way. And if you want a copy of the recording, I will send that out probably in about 24 hours. Hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.